Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit today about, I keep getting messages, you see, from people who are saying what Frankie Fraser, what a tough guy he was and what a hero and all the rest of it. And there's all these fans who seem to think that Fraser was something that he most definitely wasn't. That's a hero, because he was no hero. I met him on a number of occasions when he was in the prisons. And believe me, he was a horrible arsehole, creeping shithouse. Pardon me for lapsing into the vernacular, won't you? But all those people who think that Frankie was a tough guy, not Frankie. No, Frankie was a maniac. They didn't call him Mad Frankie Fraser for nothing. During, let me just go a little back in time. I mean, and I have seen Frankie Fraser's records, and when he came to Strange Ways in 1982, yeah, when he came there, 81, 82, yeah, he was there. Verifiable, this. You check it out. Yeah, when he was on A-Wing, I was the records officer at Strange Ways, and I hadn't handled his record, and it didn't consist of an A4 file or A5 file or A3 file, no. It was a cardboard box full, top to bottom, with all the nonsense that he'd been doing over the last 40-odd years, because he'd spent about 30, 40 years of his life in prison. That's a great success, don't you think? Yeah, I mean, if he was a really successful villain, he would probably not have been banged up like that, but no, he wasn't. He was a rubbing rag who did the callings of the likes of the Richardsons and the Crays when he went in and tortured people for them. And he did torture them. There's very little doubt about that. There's good evidence that Frankie Fraser ripped teeth out of people, hit them with axes, burnt them with a blowtorch. That was his big thing. What he used to do was get the heavy mob, the big muscle boys, to hold them down, and Frankie would nail them to the floor, the wooden floors of the old warehouses in London. Then he'd go in with his blowtorch and torture them, set them on fire, and rip some of the teeth out. Basically, that's what he did. A horrible, nasty. I mean, you've got to be out of your mind to want to do something like that. I take it you would agree. And that was the extent of really Frankie's authority. He did it with the help of armed muscle men who held them down while Frankie tortured them. I suppose that anybody in their right mind wouldn't want to do that. And of course he did use an axe on a number of people where he buried it bashed him into the head, smashed them up. People were never the same quite after that. But as for him being a real tough villain, he was a scumbag. During World War II, when the real men of London and Britain were fighting the Nazis in France and Germany and Europe, and even in Burma when they were fighting the Sons of the Rising Sun, yeah, dying in Burma. My wife's uncle died in Burma building the railway. You've probably seen the bridge on the River Kwai. You have, yeah. Yeah, that one. The bridge on the River Kwai. Well, my wife's uncle died. Her father's brother starved him to death. Anyway, let me tell you this. Frankie Fraser, no hero, horrible shitbag, didn't do anything worth it while with his life, wasted it, whilst the soldiers were away fighting the Nazis and the all the rest. What was he doing? I'll tell you what he was doing. Under the cover of darkness in the Blitz, Frankie Fraser was breaking in to people's houses, ordinary working class people, and whatever they had, he was robbing them. He actually did state that he was very unhappy at the end of the Blitz because it meant that they had the lights back on again and they could see him robbing. He ended up in Broadmoor and Rampton and places like this. Not because the system was sick of him. No, the system wasn't frightened of him. He was mad. He was mentally ill. And if you know, well, you hadn't been close to him, had you? But you've seen pictures of him. Just look at them eyes, yeah? It ain't the eyes of somebody who's thinking straight, are they? He looks like a complete nutter, and he was. And when I met him on Air-Wing, he was pretending to have flat feet. I mean, he didn't have flat feet when he went to the funeral of Reggie and Ronnie Cray, did he? No. He had shoes on. But he didn't have shoes on the landings. He had slippers on because he persuaded the senior medical officer that he had flat feet. And that's why he had to wear slippers. Yeah. Also, he persuaded the chief officer, the number one chief officer at Strangeways, that as he was Frankie Fraser, he didn't need to be locked up. I'll be all right, just leave the door unlocked. And the chief officer gave instructions that this had to take place. So when I saw Frankie Fraser out of his cell one lunchtime, I said, "You, Fraser, get back in your cell." "Oh, no," he said, "I've got the permission of the chief officer." I said, "I ain't going to tell you again. Get back in your cell." And he went in his cell, locked him in. And I went to see the chief officer when he came back on duty at 1:30 after the lunch break. I said, "I believe you've issued instructions that Fraser can remain unlocked." "Oh, yeah," he said, it's only our Frankie, I said, "He's a very dangerous prisoner." I said, "And when I'm on duty, he's locked up in a cell where he should be." Mumble, say what you want. And that was the number one chief officer. Bollocks, can't give me orders like that. Wrongful orders. That's something that everybody should bear in mind. When you receive a wrongful order, it's your duty to refuse it. Don't do it. Because if you do it, you're a party to the offence. And if the prison's in lockdown and he's out, what happens if he goes and stabs somebody? Perfectly capable of doing that. Big list of it. I'd seen his records, I don't forget. And he had attacked one member of staff, I think he was at Durham, and he'd hit them with a metal chair behind the head and damaged their optic nerve. The officer was retired blind, he couldn't see, and that was it. That's Frankie Fraser, attack from the back. And if he's out and wandering around, how do you know he's behind you? I mean, he's got slippers on, he's shuffling along. So, to all those people who sent me, I said, you wouldn't say that to Frankie Fraser's face. Believe me, not only would I say it to his face, but I did. And he's about 5'3", 5'4", something like that. But obviously a sinuous, nasty, still a dangerous man. But if it came to it, you would have picked him up and snapped him in half. I mean, and he had taken some batterings. I'd seen his prison record. And he'd been whipped, flogged, cat o' nine tails. Twice. You do it, had that once, you wouldn't want to go back, but he didn't. He had it twice. He'd been on bread and water. He'd spent bloody months, years in solitary confinement. There's no wonder he was mad, but he was mad. Anyway, that's my take on Frankie Fraser, and all those who say I wouldn't say to his face. Listen, you get the opportunity and you were in my shoes locking him up. You either do it properly or you come unstuck. You don't have a lot of choice. I'd like to see the hostesses that we've got today. I mean, some of them are actually doing the job and trying. I admire that. But it doesn't make sense. Whoever's put them in there needs to face the actual facts. And they are getting injured. They are getting imprisoned because they're being manipulated by the long-term male inmates. And they don't really know any better. They're throwing the children, 18-year-old women, get yourself a hat, set of keys and go in there and do it. Yeah. Absolute nonsense. As I was saying yesterday, what they're doing now, they're having parties in the cells, drug-induced, stoned out their head parties. Where are the staff? People sending me messages saying, where are the staff when this is happening? Tell you where the staff are. They're hiding because they don't know what to do. And why won't they know what to do? Because there's nothing they can do. There's bloody gangs in the prison now. Anyway, I'm going to sing you a song now. Ding dong ding. Hey, don't forget, folks. You've got to get yourself a copy of this. I might have written it myself, but here we are. The audio book's brilliant, by the way. You get a link down below here. Yeah. Larry the Goatherd's read it. He gave it a nice review on Amazon. It's got about 120 odd reviews now. Mainly 5-star and 4-star reviews. I sincerely hope you're going to like the next one, because I've just sent that off to the publisher. See what Sean Atwood's the publisher with his company Gadfly Publishing, Gadfly Press. Hey, I'm ringing the Ding Dong Song Dinger now, and if you're still hanging around after this, you'll be seeing me on the sick parade tomorrow morning. This is a song by Johnny Cash. Yeah. You all right, Paula? Sitting comfortably. Catherine? All right? Here we go. This is Big River by Johnny Cash. Or at least it was before I got my hands on it. It'll probably be a stream when I've finished. Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry, and I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky, and the tears I cried for you, well, they're gonna flood you, Big River, and I'm gonna sit right here until I die. I met her accidentally in St. Paul's, Minnesota, and it tore me up every time I heard her drawl, southern drawl. Then I heard my dream went back downstream, cavorting in Davenport, and I followed you, Big River, when you called. Then you took me to St. Louis, then later on the river. Freda says she's been there, but she's gone, boy, she's gone. Behind the trail in Memphis, but she just walked up the bluff. She raised a few eyebrows, and then she went on down alone. Now you won't batter down by Baton Rouge, River Queen. That woman on the way to New Orleans. Go on, I've had enough. Dump my blues down in the Gulf. She loves you, Big River, more than me. Now I taught the weeping willow how to cry. I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky, and the tears I cried for that woman, well, they're gonna flood you, Big River, and I'm gonna sit right here until I die. Big River is a big stream now, and it's floating backwards. Having heard that, seriously, Tales from the Jails, folks. This is John G. Sutton. We'll meet again.